Now, Sonny Boy's first episode had an early premiere on Funimation, I think like a month ago at this point. But given the fact that this was a show that wasn't going to be starting up until the middle of the summer season in its first month, I was like, there's no way I'm going to check out the first episode early of one of my most anticipated anime originals of the season, and then wait a month for the second episode. So, I held off. I had pretty good hopes based on the production seemingly being like a ping pong the animation style animation. The synopsis and just like what it was saying, it just kind of felt like it was going to be either a really, really solid story that would be wild with a very large cast of characters, or it would crash and burn because there'd be too many characters. And honestly, I'm happy to say that this was incredible. Even if somehow this production goes off the rails, either visually or just the narrative becomes a mess, I can safely say I will always look at this first episode as being one of my personal favorites that I've seen, at least in this year, probably in the past couple of years. This episode was incredible, and I purposely avoided any talk on Sonny Boy. I have my own expectations, but I wanted to go in as blind as possible. Luckily, it wasn't like an Attack on Titan level discuss series, so it was easy to dodge those spoilers online. But Sonny Boy, for being a show with, I think it's like 35, 40 characters, it surprisingly works well. I mean, when you have the story being something of, hey, there's an entire school that is in dark space. The school just randomly, one day after a storm, ended up here. You can't leave seemingly, and some characters develop superpowers. And you have two different kind of divisions of the school. One of like the student council wanting to obey the rules, and kind of like the up-and-coming hierarchy that's trying to destroy the kind of like the status quo and bring in some new world order. You end the episode with seemingly that dark space becoming, well, seemingly a normal-looking world. And there's a lot of questions. I guess you could say there was also some answers, given what happened to them. Did they get moved? Did the world get moved? And if what we saw in this episode is to be believed, seemingly their original bodies from their homeworld are probably dead. Are they spirits? Are they like a new entity entirely? Hard to say. But for having almost like 40 characters, it worked really well. There's so many times where like anime struggle to have even like 6 main characters, so if you're gonna list an entire school, what are you gonna do? My original thought was one of two things. A, there would be like 3 or 4 like central main characters, and then they would interact with a bunch of characters, but they'd just be kind of side supporting cast. Or it would be more focused on the story, less on the characters. And what I mean by that is like the mystery of what happened and what's going to happen to them would be a more relevant focus than necessarily fleshing out and developing them past like a point A to point B scenario. And it almost feels like it's a mixture of both. This episode gave me the impression that every character we focused on, whether it was the man seemingly in charge, who went from, you know, someone really enjoying authority to taking a baseball bat to the head of one classmate, to just kind of like the mysterious nature of this girl who seems to be completely against the rules. Every personality didn't feel like a generic, cliche anime high school character. Rather, it felt like a pretty well-diverse and variety personas. And it felt like, I mean, some people take it really well. Some people just chilling, reading manga, enjoying their new life. Other people visibly bored and upset. Rather than making me say, oh, here's just a boring group of people, it was honestly a pretty varied personality test, all things considered. And I like how this episode, rather than making you say, this is our main character, or this is the character we need to focus on the most, there definitely were certain characters who got more focus for sure. This one bastard here, I mean, it's gonna, if I even remember a majority of these names, I want a medal, because I have a hard enough time remembering a handful of names. But this man had so many mysterious, evil grins. I swear he's a goddamn supervillain. I wouldn't be shocked if he is. He seemingly is the one with the authority, all things considered, but we'll see where that goes. Everyone had some pretty fun personalities, but the focus of this episode was, without a doubt, being blown away by the aesthetic and the animation, because this is very much like a ping-pong the animation style directing choice. Rather than going super clean with every single shot, characters are expressive. The line work can be sloppy at times, leaving room for more expressive body reactions. I mean, the first like third shot in this episode, you see like a warped hallway. It is absolutely ridiculously cool to look at, and honestly I would argue is probably one of the best animated episodes, at least first episodes of this year, hands down. But I love the idea of the mystery of what happened and how yeah, it's a pretty big shock, but rather than like making the focus of, oh, we need to save the day or this is gonna happen, honestly, you are the protagonist of your own life, right? That's kind of like a cliche thing to say, but it's probably the best way to explain how they're directing this. Whenever you focus on a character, you feel like what they're saying makes sense for their persona and what they believe the circumstance means for them. And I like how, for the viewer watching, at least I know for me anyway, watching this, my biggest question was, what would happen if they jumped out that window, if they went into black space, and what will happen? Is there ever going to be a way to return home? Are they going to return home with some having superpowers? Do the superpowers only exist in this reality? Episode 2 could come in, they could have no superpowers anymore, and it will be a reset. Maybe it's like a challenge. Maybe there's some god entity making this their plaything, saying, hey, this is the ultimate escape room. Maybe the first escape challenge was, would you jump to your death seemingly to actually trigger the next landscape? What will be the next one? Do you have to climb the top of the mountain that we saw in this episode? It's hard to say. Or was this a freak accident with the world seemingly shattering and reality is being warped? I don't know, but I am so excited for more. And the anime community has the tendency to be very pessimistic, and what I mean is that if you have, say, a sports series, right? Say we don't get a lot of sports anime, and one that people were really hyped up about didn't end up the way they wanted. The next time they jump into a sports series soon after, they're going to say, well, this one didn't do it too well, so I'm not going to be all that excited about it. The same thing happens with originals tons of times. If like a original doesn't end to the best of their ability, you know, they'll go into a new original like Sonny Boy saying, yeah, you know, we got excited about that Wonder Egg, so now we can't be excited about Sonny Boy. You absolutely can. There is hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of anime that come out every single year. I don't like a majority of them. I may cover like 15 shows in a season, but that is still just a fraction of the number of anime that come out. You have to be selective, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you enjoyed this first episode, there is no reason not to be excited for the future. Things can change, and maybe I'll come up here maybe even next week, or the week after, or maybe I'll never come up, but there could be a point where I don't like where the show goes. But I am excited for right now, and that's what matters. And it's much better for me anyway to, you know, be excited for anime than be cautiously optimistic. I mean, I do that for like the first episodes just because you never know. But if you hook, line, and sinker me in the first episode, I'm going to remain positive unless you give me a reason not to be. And this episode absolutely did it all. Loving the voice actors, I actually was expecting some pretty mundane and boring voice actors given the variety of characters and how many are on screen. All really fun, different personalities. I have to say, despite being in the most weird anomaly superpowered setting, they surprisingly felt like humans, some more psycho than others for sure, but some great performances across the board. I think everyone should give Sonny Boy a shot. Probably a lot of people already did a month back. I highly recommend you probably rewatch it before next week's episode. But seriously, Sonny Boy is definitely going to be probably one of my most anticipated, maybe even my most anticipated next week episode. I mean, I'm not saying it's my current favorite of the season. I will say, though, it is my current favorite first episode of the season, and probably the most intriguing first episode of the season, no matter what happens down the line. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on Sonny Boy down below. Drop a like to help promote the video, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.